Welcome, everyone, to Unmuted Love. I'm so happy you're here today. I have a special guest. Her name is Naomi Houston, and she is the author of A Glimpse into the Unknown. I am so excited for you to have a chance to hear her talk about her story and why she decided to write a book about it. But she has a very interesting story, and she is a lovely young woman. And I'm delighted that I have known her for a long time, not intimately, because she's been busy growing up and getting strong in her life, which is so awesome. Welcome, Naomi. Welcome to Unmuted Love.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. When your mom told me that you published a book, I was like, really? I'm so excited. I'm pretty sure I was the first person to buy one. I'm
That's
sure she was.
amazing.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy it right now when she told me. And then I got it in the mail, like really like the next day or so.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful, Naomi.
Thank
It's
you
so
so much.
beautifully
Thank you.
written.
Thank
You
you.
have such a poet's eye. Has anyone told you that?
My parents have, yeah.
You have this beautiful way of describing your life and your experience and all that you've been through, that it's like reading a whole poem,
Thank you.
which is lovely.
Yeah.
Tell my listeners a little bit about what A Glimpse into the Unknown is actually about.
It's about my journey through healing from trauma because I was abandoned as a baby and left at an orphanage in China. My birth parents, I assume, were too poor to take care of me because I had a cleft lip and cleft palate. And that has taken a toll on my attachment issues and my fear of abandonment. And it's been hard with relationships and trusting others. Through middle school, it was very difficult for me. And I went through a lot of depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. And the book, I wrote it because it has helped me heal more, and I wanted to tell my story so I could help others.
Well, it's beautiful, and I know that it will help others if they give it a chance, right? It's so beautifully written. It's like, oh, you really have to read every sentence. That's how lovely it is to read. So I'm sure it'll have plenty of readers soon. Tell me a little bit about what's going on today in your life, right? How old are you? You're not like 47.
No, I'm 18 years old. Yeah, and I'm a first year student at St. Mary's College of California.
And what are you studying there?
I'm studying psychology, minoring in business and marketing.
Well, that's a funny combination. Is
Yeah.
there is there a reason why you put those two things together?
So my main job I want to be is a therapist specializing in trauma and adoption. I also want to get into real estate and invest in properties and stuff like that. And one day have my own private practice. And so for that, I need like business skills to run my own company.
Awesome. That's thinking ahead for sure. I'm imagining that all the work that you did along the way is what draws you to psychology.
Yes, my therapist, when I was going through my really difficult time, she really, really helped me. And I think I mentioned her in the book actually, Kara. She really helped me get through trauma and she inspired me to become a therapist myself.
That's lovely. Let's sort of back up a little bit and talk about your experience. So, I don't know if you know this, but here on Unmuted Love, a lot of the listeners are adoptive parents.
Yeah.
And they often come to me or tune into me because, as you know, I'm a therapist for families with adopted children because I adopted some children
Yeah.
when I was younger, and I had a really hard time knowing how to help them. Once I figured that out, then I decided I could share that with other people, a little bit like you, right? Like you figured out how to heal from trauma or to be on the path to healing from trauma, and then you want to share that with other people.
Mhm.
And that's exactly the same as my story. And that's what I'm doing today. So I identify with that quite a bit. But one of the things that listeners often really want to know is what's going on inside my child. And first of all, you'll be an incredible asset, right? To anybody, to parents or children. Do you have an idea who you want to work with, the parents or the children or both?
Both. Yeah.
Yeah. You have actually a bird's eye view into both, right? So I'm just curious to know a little bit more specifically about your adoption journey. So I know that you're one, right, when you come to your family.
Yeah.
And then when did you actually really start having trouble as a child who experienced abandonment?
Honestly, since I was little, because I remember like my parents would just like tell me something or ask me to do something or correct me. And for me, I internalized that a lot. I thought they were just going to like reject me if I did something wrong. So I tried my best to like not. And then whenever they did correct me or something, I would cry and shut down because I was afraid of that fear of abandonment.
Did you get this idea that you had to be perfect in order to
Yeah.
be loved?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that probably didn't go very well because it's hard to be perfect.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember one time, like, my parents were teaching me how to use the vacuum, and I thought I knew how to use it correctly, and apparently I didn't. And so my parents were trying to help me, and then I just started bawling and shutting down, and I think I just went to my room.
Well, and I don't know your whole story, so I might be wrong, but there are kids who act in their distress and other kids who act out their
Yeah.
distress.
Hmm.
Were you both one or the other?
I was mainly acting inwards, but through middle school, I started to act out more and pushing people away that were close to me and self destructive behavior, like self
Mhm.
harm and stuff like that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what your relationship was like with your parents. So I know that you were having an internal struggle. What was it like with them as you were growing up?
I was close to, I still am close to my parents, but I didn't feel like I belonged when I was little because, like, one, I didn't look like my parents, and two, like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like I fit in all the way. But, like, growing up, I had a good relationship with them.
You never felt like it wasn't strong or solid?
It felt strong and solid, but at the same time, I felt like I wasn't as connected as I could have been if I was born into their family instead of adopted.
Mhm. Do you have siblings?
I have two siblings. My younger brother, he's adopted as well, but locally. He's 12, and I have an older brother who is 20. Their biological son.
Did you feel like it was different for you than for your older brother?
A little bit because like I felt like he fit in more because he looked like my parents and he was also more social growing up and he did more activities like baseball and just hanging out with friends and stuff like that and I did too but it wasn't like all the time and so I felt like I was kind of lonely at some points of my life.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we could turn back time and if someone could know what to do to support you, what do you think it would be? Because you had a strong relationship with your parents, which actually is unusual. A lot of times, kids who are adopted don't have a strong relationship with their parents because they don't trust.
Yeah.
But it seems like you overcame that.
Yeah.
But maybe there is something that could have happened had people really understood what was going on with you. Of
That's hard because because I know that they did their best but like
course.
at the same time, like they didn't realize growing up how trauma really affected me and how they're raising my little brother now is different than how they were raising me because now that they've learned having more empathy maybe and like letting me just like have time to process everything. Therapy really helped me, but like at the same time, like when I was 10 years old and I tried to go to therapy, I screamed and I shut down and I did not want to go. So I don't think at 10 years old that helped me, but later on like at 13, 14, that is where everything helped, everything changed for me. So
Mhm. So, I happen to know that in there you, became pretty self-harming and your parents were very concerned and they tried to get you help. What kind of help did they get you?
inpatient hospitalization, that did not help me at all. My parents were like, yeah, that's just a band-aid. It helped me like not harm myself for like 72 hours, but like that wasn't gonna get to the root of the problem. Talk therapy, that helped. It was kind of like a diary, but like at the same time, it was like it doesn't really help as much. But when I went to my therapeutic boarding school in Utah, that really helped me. At first, I hated it. I did not want to be there, but then I accepted that I was there and I connected with my therapist, Kara, and that really helped me. But at the same time, at that point I wanted to get help. And I know a lot of girls there who didn't want to get help and they faked it. And then when they came back home, they went back to their old patterns and they continued to do the same things they were doing.
What do you think the difference was between you and them? Not all, I mean, they're all different, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
why were you just a little bit different than that?
For me personally, I really wanted to get better and I really understood that I was really struggling with my mental health and with trauma. And I wanted to get better. So I had that determination to heal myself.
Yeah, that's great. So what kind of therapy do you think you were getting from Kara that was so effective? Because talk therapy hadn't worked before.
Adventure therapy. I did brain spotting a little bit. And honestly, like just building that connection with her really helped. And she challenged me. She helped me see the potential in myself. So that really helped me.
Mhm. When I read your book, I see the journey. It almost feels like, so this is what I was thinking when I was reading your book. Like, well, if I were going to put down in words what a therapeutic process is, it would really be the journey in this book,
Yeah.
right? It reads like this is the story of my therapeutic journey.
Yeah.
And then how you went on a path of looking at how you thought, looking at how you felt, looking at your story, creating your story, deciding on the parts that you wanted to keep and the parts you didn't want to keep, and accepting the pieces of who you are, and then accepting where you are in your process. I mean, it's like a perfect therapeutic journey to me. I was like, wow, I couldn't have written this. But as I read it, it's like, yeah, that's exactly right. When a person is in therapy, this is their process if they are successful.
Mm-hmm.
Is
It's
that what it
true.
feels like? Is that part of writing it? Was like,
Yeah.
this is the journey if you want
Mm-hmm.
to get better.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, it shows. It definitely shows. Is there work still to do? You're 18. You're not very old to have this kind of wisdom, but I don't know. You're channeling some kind of like old, soul, I think.
Thank you.
Are there pieces left of your journey for therapeutic journey?
I want to work on relationships, especially like romantic relationships, because at my therapeutic boarding school, I mainly focused on like my past trauma and the connections that I have with my friends and family, but never really got into romantic relationships. So I think I will work on that.
Do you know what your attachment style is?
I took a test and I think it was anxious preoccupied attachment style.
That sounds right. Yeah,
Yeah.
just from what I know about you. I
Yeah.
should, full disclosure, I should say that I have met you before when you were much younger. How old were you when we met? Do you remember?
Probably like 11 or 12.
Yeah, just sort of before you went off to therapeutic boarding school. Do you want to say the name of your boarding school? Did you like it enough to say
Yeah, Moonridge Academy
it?
in Cedar City, Utah.
Yeah. When you were being sent there, what did it feel like? Because a lot of parents have to go through doing that, right? It feels like doing
Mhm.
it to their child. What was that like for you?
I honestly felt like abandonment was coming up at first because I just had gotten done with my first facility, which was a residential facility in Tarzana, California, and that didn't help at all. It was more like a bougie vacation. It was like not with a little therapy, it didn't really help. It was like a complete 180 for me because Moonridge is like so country, so like horses and out in the basically wilderness out in the middle of nowhere. So going from like a place that was had two mansions and like chefs and all that stuff, like a city life, to that was totally different. And I felt like I was like being abandoned, like being put in the middle of nowhere.
Did that come between you and your parents at all?
At first, it kind of did because I was like, why won't you just take me back home? Why are you doing this to me?
Mhm.
But then once I started to accept it, then we started to have a good relationship again.
That's, I think, a really interesting piece about you. You have a kind of real acceptance of who you are and that you really wanted to get better. And so
Yeah.
when you realized that the environment you were in was helpful to you, you actually went with it, which is probably a big piece of your success. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were going to talk to young people going through some of what you were going through, what would you say to them? I mean, I realize you just wrote an entire book, but this is podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to condense it.
I would say to not give up, to hang on a little longer. It will get better. Honestly, to like accept yourself and be kind to yourself and get therapy. And I hope that you want to get better, because if you don't want to get better and you are forced into therapy, you're going to hate it. You're going to like not want to do it, and it's not going to work.
For sure. As a therapist, how will you be different, do you think, than that first therapist you went to? Was it me? I
So,
don't think so. We
um,
didn't actually have therapy. I'm joking.
I want to build a connection with them first. And when I have my own private practice, I want it to be on the beach. So we could have walks on the beach and get maybe coffee or hot chocolate or something like that, and build a relationship, and also being accepting and leaving space for them to respond, even if we're not talking.
Yeah, so sort of being accepted for where you're at any
Mm-hmm.
moment, any given
Yeah.
moment. It sounds to me like the relationship was super important for you. It's interesting because I'll just be honest with you. I usually don't encourage parents to send their kids to counseling alone or therapy
Mm-hmm.
alone because often it turns into sort of a parent assassination session, and then it
Yeah.
actually can lead to feeling worse about your parents and more disconnected and less attached. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's true, honestly. Because when I did talk therapy first, I kind of was just like, oh, yeah, I don't like my parents. I don't feel connected to them and stuff like that. And I wish I had a different family, and I wish blah, blah, blah. But honestly, I think that's because internally, I didn't feel like I belonged, and it had nothing to do with the parents, honestly. It had more to do with me. But I also don't know how much kids would open up to a therapist with their parents around.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe what is helpful is to start, if you're going to do therapy, do it with your parents when you're younger,
Yeah.
when you aren't as feeling like it's them against you, but more like you're
Mhm.
still part of trying to figure it out together. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good idea.
Mm.
And also, therapy when you're younger will help destigmatize what therapy is, and it'll help build the positivity of therapy.
Yeah, for sure. Have you talked to your little brother about what you've been through and maybe what he might be going through?
A little bit, but he doesn't really want to talk about it right now. He's at the same age range I was when I first met you, so he's still developing, and he's still going through life.
He's not
Yeah,
available yet to it.
no. Hopefully, when
That's
he's older, though.
Yeah. Are you close with him?
Kind of. We get along, but we also fight a lot, and yeah,
Yeah. Do you think he struggles with attachment too?
definitely, he definitely does.
Yeah.
But if he heard me saying that, he would be like, "No, I don't." And
Right? Because he's your brother.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think it's really hard. I mean, honestly, I don't know any children who've been adopted, whether it's local or from China or anywhere else, that doesn't have some kind of attachment challenge, right?
yeah.
Because how can you avoid that? How can you escape that?
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is how often people who are adopting children don't really quite understand
Mm-hmm.
that attachment piece, right? We think,
Yes.
well, you're living under the same roof. I'm feeding you and loving you and telling you I
Mhm.
love you. And why don't you feel attached?
Exactly.
Mhm. And so, do you have a theory about that? Why don't all these behaviors that parents do, like, driving you everywhere and picking out your clothes and telling you they love you and feeding you and, just doing all the parenting things, why do you think that doesn't translate to attachment?
Because when you are abandoned, your physical needs are not being met by the one who's giving birth to you. And that's very important. And also the idea of being left by your birth parents, I feel like that is trauma in itself. Like I learned this in psychology, but it's not like coming back to me right now.
No, and I'm really asking from your own point of view. Like, I mean, I happen to know your parents, so you have very lovely parents. They're not perfect by any means, but they try really hard and they
Yeah,
care a
they do.
lot. But somehow it wasn't translating for you and I heard what you said earlier. It was that you didn't feel like you belonged, even though they thought you belonged.
Yeah,
So it's like an internal experience you have of feeling like if your own birth parents don't want you,
yeah,
where are you going to belong? Did you think
exactly.
that? Did you think your own birth parents didn't want you?
Yes, I totally thought that.
Which couldn't be further from the truth, right? Did you figure that out, or
Yeah, I figured that out.
yeah, you
Yeah.
figured that out. Yeah.
And also, another reason why I feel like for me, I have attachment issues is because when I was in the orphanage, my needs were not always getting met. And as a baby, developmentally, you need your needs to be met because you can't care for yourself yet. And in the orphanage, I was tied up, like my wrists and my ankles were tied together, and we slept with the lights on. It was not comforting to be there. So,
No kidding. It's like torture. It's like you were in jail or something, right? If your
yeah,
hands and feet are tied up. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm sorry that that happened. It sounds to me like you have come to terms with it.
yeah.
Did you go through a period of feeling sad about yourself and what happened to you?
Yeah, I definitely through middle school, I definitely did. And sometimes when I think about it for too long, I will get sad about it, but then I just accept it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is kind of personal and you don't have to answer it, but I'm just curious if medication played a role at all. And I'm asking you this question really for parents listening
Yeah.
because they always struggle with, is this something that should be medicated? Should it not be? What's happening?
For my depression, I did go on medications and I took a few and they didn't really help, but right now I'm on Zoloft and that's helping a lot actually.
Hmm. So sometimes, the neurochemicals of someone who didn't get early positive attachment, they don't develop quite in the same way. So that persists a little bit. So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's not just for kids who are adopted, too. Like I had early trauma in my
Yeah.
childhood, and I have that too. So it just is what it is. Have to come to terms with it all.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of how kids like you, who are your age, right? So now you're launched, right? You're off
Mhm.
living on your own. Let's say that an adopted child like you gets to college and then they're having a hard time. What do you think they should do?
Go to therapy. Surround yourself by people who genuinely care for you. Focus on yourself. Do something that makes you happy. Like for me, I like writing and journaling, and I also like working out. And I do stunt the sport, which is like cheer. Do something that you like doing, and talk to someone about it.
Sounds like you're just a real fan of therapy.
Yeah, yeah, I like therapy.
Not everybody likes therapy.
I know.
Yeah, but it really worked for you. I can see why you like it. Totally
Yeah.
works. Yeah. Okay, so if you had one thing to say to parents, don't do this, what would you say?
Middle school me would be like, don't take away my phone, don't take away social media from me. But honestly, like, unless like it's very life threatening, don't use hospitalization as your key source. Because for my parents, whenever I was just going through a hard time, at first they would send me to an inpatient, and that did not help. That honestly made things worse because I was surrounded by people who were also in a bad place with like no restrictions on what we can talk about. So there's a lot of negative talk in there. So
Yeah, no, that's good feedback. So I want to I was going to kind of end here, but then I'm like, don't take away your phone and your social media. Spoken like a true 18-year-old, but maybe there's some wisdom to it. So let me hear your wisdom about that because a lot of kids are doing things on their phones
yeah.
and social media that are not good for them. So tell me about that. Tell me from your perspective about that.
Well, for me, like now I understand where they're coming from, but like honestly, taking away social media for me, it was not helpful because I would just sneak it and I would just like go on online to look up Instagram or Snapchat or something like that. So I snuck it anyway, so it didn't really do anything but lose trust in my parents, and that's also not a good thing. I think phone breaks are a good thing, but at the same time, phones are used daily, and like it's a way for people to connect with each other, but maybe limiting it and not completely taking it away.
Well, I think that's pretty wise right there. I appreciate it. So, is there something that you would like to say that I haven't asked you? You want to say buy my book?
Oh, can you please? Everyone, please buy my book.
And what's the name of your book again?
A glimpse into the unknown. So right now I'm actually writing a autobiography kind of about my life story because that was just like the therapeutic part.
Mhm.
But I actually want to like write my story from beginning to where I am now. But like I think I'm going to continue it until I'm older. So I have like more pages, more life experience.
Yeah, more story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's writing your life story for 18 years, it's going to be a really long life. Maybe you'll have like 5 or 6 memoirs before it's all said and done, which will be
Yeah,
lovely. Yeah, I hope you
probably.
keep writing. You do have a lovely voice in writing, and I love that you outline this therapeutic process. I love that you have been on this healing process. It really shows, it really shows in you. You're a beautiful young woman, and I am so grateful to know you, but also to know your mom. Like I've known your mom all this time
Yeah.
too, and she's a beautiful person also, and I really understand the shift that she is making with your brother because she learned from you. She
Yeah.
learned, and she and I have been working together for a while just around therapeutic parenting, right? Just understanding that. It sounds like that transition has happened and maybe doesn't feel very great to you because you didn't get to have it, but
Yeah, me or my brother, my older brother. Because he's like, why are you parenting like this? Why don't
that's
you just parent normally?
that's so funny. What do they say when you say that?
They explained to my older brother how trauma really affects people and how just normal parenting isn't going to work.
Isn't going to work because it does what?
Nothing.
Nothing. It does nothing. It makes you worse, right? You feel worse. You feel like you're in trouble for just being who you are. Well, Naomi, thank you so much for taking the time to come talk
Of
to
course.
me. I love seeing your beautiful face. I'm so happy to reconnect with you this way. And I'll be looking forward to the next volume of your memoir. And I will see you again, I hope, for your next interview for the next
Okay.
volume. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I wish you well. And thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming to Unmuted Love.
Thank you.